I'm going to tell you a story. First thing you have to understand is, time does not work the way you think it does. You can call me Oracle, because I'm the one who's talking to you. Welcome to the call. So, I have advanced a little bit further in Loom. I'm still on the Crystal Guard Island, but gone and seen the shepherds. I've met up with the dragon, dealt with the dragon in the plot accustomed way. Since this is such a short game, because realistically it is a pretty short game, I'm not really going to get into a lot of the details in case someone wants to play it, but I'm realistically like halfway through, which isn't bad, because I think I started earlier today. Like, it's really a short game. I'm not joking. But, like, came out, like, I'm gonna have to look up when it came out, actually. I might have it handy, actually. Look here. Does that when it came out? I don't know if I scroll, probably tell me how long ago it came out. It came out a while ago. Anyway, back to Book of Troth. Alright, chapter on giving. This is essentially, things like, putting offerings on, your altar, the core concept of sacrifice as giving of yourself. It has a lot to do with divine service. Holy Year, Wheel of Seasons, did a whole section on that. The folk. Support the bottom, essentially. Archetypes. Oh, yeah, that's great. The great psychologist Carl Jung, in an essay entitled Willtown, crafted an effective metaphor in reference to the mysterious way in which the old gods of our people remain can be, again, become active in our world. Archetypes are like riverbeds which dry up when water deserts them, but which can find again at any time. An archetype is like an old water course along which the water of life has flowed for centuries, digging a deep channel for itself. The longer it has flowed in this channel, the more likely it is that sooner or later the water will return to its old bed. So, yeah, archetypes, man. Archetypes like there are two statues, like gods and goddesses. Oh, gods and goddesses. That's it. Like, cause the thing is, like, gods and goddesses are essentially archetypes of the best that we see in ourselves, and like what we would like to be. Like, if we had as much power as the gods and goddesses, a lot of times when they're anthropomorphic for a reason, because sometimes they're based on historical figures, sometimes they're not. But in a lot of times mythology, they're us trying to put like a human face on things that are above beyond like human can, basically, like especially in things like the Vanir that are like embodiments of natural forces. They're like, we need the stories to interpret them. It's sort of like Puritana legend is important to us. It just is. Part of why, like, if you really understand Kabbalah, like the Svatna, the Mahasvatna, is essentially like the frame of the foundation is like Basra with Mahazunya is like Yesod. Like, essentially, by Kabbalistic reasoning, it sort of both supports and is supported by physical reality. Alright. Names and characteristics of many gods and goddesses are manifold. There are a lot of gods. There really are. There really are. Like, I think in a lot of ways, the fact that there are so many gods is part of why there is so much appeal to monotheistic centered religions like Judaism, like Christianity, because you know it's simpler. It's a lot simpler when even if you, in my opinion, buy into the correct interpretation of the Ten Commandments, which is like essentially it recognizes that there are other gods, which is why Yahweh is like, don't worship other gods before me. Like, I'm not gonna even say don't worship other gods, but don't worship other gods before me. No, you're my people. Don't do that. Like, essentially, that's my interpretation of it. I think that's partially how they managed to, like, because in, like, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, the Jewish people were enslaved in Egypt. Not according to the Dead Sea Scrolls. According to the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were paid for their work. Tax records are like that. Tax records and, like, and receipts for payment of services rendered actually a lot like that. The ladder being. The fact we have many gods and goddesses is shown by the fact we have many kinds of men and women. Archetypes. Gods are arrayed in this way, and so are the folk. Society. The ladder of being. The ladder of being is an interesting thing. It's a concept that's actually very common, and it's referred to as the chain of being in medieval medieval theology, essentially, is everything. It's actually, if I remember correctly, that's where we get the whole line of the King of the Beast thing, and all of the parallels referring to Jesus as the Lion of Judah and the Lamb of God, because he's supposed to be like where the lion is the king of beasts. Jesus is supposed to essentially be like the innate king of humans. That's just like the reasoning of it by the chain of being thing. So like I believe that's essentially what it's about. I'm kind of skimming through a lot of this. Gods. Okay, through the gods. Gods and goddesses are real, and their tales are true. They exist in a realm beyond individual human beings or groups of them. Our deeds can awaken them or send them to sleep, but they exist as long as we exist. That's what I'm saying. Having lost trust in their gods is quite typical for people to shift their understanding of them as being moving on a lower plane of existence. This happened in the ancient Greek and Roman religions when certain thinkers began to spread the doctrine that the gods had really been extraordinary men of the dim past who had, either by their greatness or trickery, convinced people that they were gods. That's an interesting notion. The people that I was kind of sort of like not meaning to imply, but kind of implying is that like in some cases. Actually, I had this be the case of the Hindu gods, specifically in my third novel. That essentially I made a lot of the. I think I specifically made certain pantheons effectively Nephilim, but they were created like by the books of the Watchers, like the Amazons, the Atlanteans. The Greek gods actually fall into this category, as did the Hindu gods. The Oni, a lot of supernaturals around the world, or various kinds of Nephilim like families. There are basically 20 of them, but there was also like a bunch of Fae, because there are a bunch of Fae. So like a lot of them just sort of got mingled together and then separated and then got back together, and so because that's just kind of how the world is. Some people try to pay attention to it too hard, and then the ones who are paying attention to it at all just disappear. And then, no one knows who. Then no one knows who anyone's parents were, and then sometimes like that becomes a problem because people who shouldn't be having kids together are having kids together, and they have a lot of medical problems that happens, unfortunately, quite a lot. But in this case, I'm talking more about like actual, just like regular Jiva, regular human beings, rather than just supernatural beings from my books, but still. Oh, yo. All right. I haven't seen this before. Okay. This is an interesting way to look at the soul. Here is a visual diagram of the Atman from this perspective. Fetch is essentially your seeming, like your outwardly appearance. but it like at the Abasthana, at the glamour level, if that makes sense. Let's see. Come on. What do these words mean? The like or leak. The lich is the body. Oh, that's funny. That's probably why liches are referred to as that, because they're corpses essentially. They're Zava. That's why actually like corpus or corpse is so related. Like the body is the corpus, but it's also like when you're not alive anymore, it's a corpse. That's kind of how that works. The leak is it's the body is the physical vehicle which most parts of the body's soul are views. Whoop. That's that little serpent. That's that little Kundalini serpent down there. The leak. Yay. He is the intellectual and analytical part of man. The mind and the will are embodied in this. Closely allied with this part of the soul is the mind, which is the reflected part of the mind. In the mind is the well of ancestral memory. In the mind is the well of ancestral memories, as well as those personal ones from the individual's own lifetime. Two aspects should work together in close harmony with one another. The mind provides material of deep and eternal significance for the hue to work on, and both working together can come to right answers. The soul aspects are reflected in the ravens of Woden, Hugin, and Munin. Alright, so I got the mind and the whole. What was the two things I was just talking about? Yeah, the mind there. The breath of life, or prana, is the Atman. It keeps the whole being fed with the energies that sustain it in life and keep body and soul together. Yep, that's what prana does. You? Atman. Anyway, the other aspects of the soul are more mysterious and are not often directly experienced. This is in contrast to those already discussed, which, at least on some low level, we experience every waking moment of the day and through the dreams of sleep. Woad is the New English form that we would have for the essential aspect of Woden, the power of inspiration or even mania, as the Greeks would have called it. Experience of this of this is extraordinary. It constitutes an alternative consciousness. It's probably para-ida. It's probably so. There's this core notion in actually I don't even know specifically if it's a Buddhist thing. I'm guessing it is, but like in I found these terms in Sanskrit. Para Atman for basically the soul of God, or the soul of the gods, so to speak, and Jivatman, soul of humans. And then there's Idiveda, which is essentially the Vajra between those 2 points, where like if you're a Voodoo Hungen, your Idiveda is your connection to the Loa, specifically in your Metet, your head Loa, like your ruler of the head, so to speak. So that's basically what that would be about. The fetch can be understood in the traditional sense of an entity separate from the individual, but which is attached to him, her, for the duration of his or her life. It is the conduit through which the gods communicate to him or her, and the embodiment of all that she or he has ever been. So in it's interesting. There's a thing where luck sits in there, huh? So in the World of Darkness games, essentially there's a core concept of your avatar. Now, in Sanskrit, avatar means incarnation. So essentially, it's kind of a misnomer, but it's a game term, so like whatever. But essentially, the fetch in this case is, near as I can tell what the avatar is, it's essentially like you know what? I'm going to read more before I actually get too much more into this. But which is attached to it is the conduit through which the gods communicate to him or her, and the embodiment of all that he or she has ever been. It is a storehouse of images and powers from beyond this life and from beyond Midgard. It stores up all the experience. Oh, you're a Leia Vinyana. Your storehouse consciousness. Of course, that makes sense. Fetch is very rarely experienced in any direct way. For the most part, it only appears when death is near, when the man is quote fey. The fetch that is that which is responsible for the common phenomenon of life passing before one's eyes, just before death. Yeah, it's also so it's basically like a Leia Vinyana / the DMT thing. Yeah, your brain basically essentially when you're close to death releases. Actually, it's not just when you're close to death. It's also when you're in a situation where you could die. It will release a massive amount of DMT and essentially put you into a Zastracopa Sword Fury bullet time, where you're essentially like your entire life is flashing before your eyes, essentially to get you to try to figure out a way to not die. Then, as far as I'm aware, at least I think that's how that works. Passing before one's eyes just for one death, or the appearance of spectral female figures at the time. The Banshee, the Adiyogini. The fetch is seen as an entity of the sex opposite that person in question. Close to say with the fetch is the luck of the person. It can also have a guardian aspect of, in which case it can be called the warden. Warden trees. I don't have a better explanation other than warden trees. In it is housed all the echoes of all the deeds ever done by the bodies to which the fetch has ever been bound. This will be discussed further in the next two chapters. Soul is, in the technical sense, the psychic body or shade, which embodies the self after the death of the leak. This knowledge about the traditional nature of the human being in all essential aspects, and the teaching of rebirth and of weird bound up with it, can have the results most true men and women desire. However, those who wish to delve deeper into these realms will have to take up the lore of the runes. Alright. That's a good long video. This is Oracle. This is Oracle. Gonna sing myself out with the Alba Super and the roundabout. And then just away on street. Down here in reality, as you would see, the dream's safely out there to be. Dreaming safely out there, out in the wee.